5 minutes since our last panel. We have a lot of cool stuff to show. This next dev panel is going to be going into the background of how high-level content is created, something I'm sure a lot of you guys here are very interested to learn about because you guys are all hardcore players, I'm sure. Yeah, we're all the best. Yeah, we're first. Cool, good job. All right, so enough talking out of me. Let me welcome our guest to the stage. Can we please bring up to the stage battle content designer Masaki Nakagawa. And up next, we have, of course, our enigmatic producer-director. Please welcome to the stage Naoki Yoshida. And last but certainly not least, the backbone of our panels, we have Koji Fox and Aimi Tokutake. I know that you guys have a lot to show, so please go ahead and get started, and I'll see you guys after the show. Enjoy.
Mr. オズマがすごい緊張してるんで声援を送ってあげてください。
So Mr. Ozma here is very nervous right now, so just encourage him a little bit, please.
Okay, before getting started, let me introduce myself. Hi, I'm Masaki Nakagawa. Please call me Masaki. I started to work for Square Enix in December 2011, right after the first primal battle, Ifrito was implemented into the original version 14. Before joining Square Enix, I worked as a programmer for an e-commerce system company, and I was like you, a Final Fantasy fan. I've been playing 14 since the day the original version launched. I liked it. One day, when I was surfing the official forums, I saw a recruitment post from Yoshi. In this post, he said, regardless of whether you have experience in gaming industry or not, please send us your resume if you are passionate and ambitious. Right after seeing this, I sent in my resume to him. This is the reason I'm here now. At first, I was assigned to the item team for the original 14, and I was in charge of determining all item drop rate, battle parameters for all equipments, and creating sanction system, and faction leaves for relic weapon quests, and so forth. For Realm Reborn development, I was assigned to the monster team after a few months of working for the item team. Thank you for listening. And let's move on the topic about battle content I have helped create. And let me speak Japanese from now on, as many Japanese players are watching this.
I'm ready.
すごい。
That
頑
was
張った。
great.
英語でやりきったね。
You done a really good job. You did it in English. Brilliant.
はい、ではここから日本語で喋ります。
All right, I'm going to Japanese now.
これらが彼が担当してきたコンテンツですね。
So these are the different content that Nakagawa handled.
はい、これが担当コンテンツのリストになります。
This is the list of a battle content I've worked on.
たった3年間でこれだけ
In just 3 years, all of this? This is pretty impressive.
これ以外にもインスタンスダンジョンのボス戦やクエストバトルなどがあるんですが、数が多すぎるのでここには載せていません。
In addition to these, I've worked on quest battles and other instance dungeon boss battles that are too numerous to list here.
このリストを見て分かる通り、私は万神戦や24人レイドなどのカジュアルからミッドコアプレイヤー向けのコンテンツの開発経験が豊富で、エンドコンテンツの開発経験はそれほど多くありません。
As you can see here, my specialty is the 24-man raids, casual to middle core content. I don't have that much experience creating the high-end content.
今日はモンスター班のスタッフの一人として皆さんの前で話をする機会をいただいたので、モンスター班の仕事ってどういうものなのかっていうのを説明させていただきます。
As today, I'm here as a representative of the monster team, I'm going to talk a little bit about how boss battles created and from planning to development.
はい、この図が、ボス企画が、開発リリースされるまでの、流れになります。
So the diagram you see here describes the flow we use to create most battle content.
ボス戦の内容を考えて、それをドキュメント化し、さまざまなセクションのスタッフに、プレゼンテーションをします。
To put it simply, we start with an idea, document the details, and then conduct presentations with staff of several various sections to receive a consensus.
その後必要なモーションやエフェクト、サウンドや BG などの発注をして、実際のゲームを作っていきます。
After that, orders are made for character models, motions, effects, sound, battlefields, and with those assets, the battle is put together.
この図だけではよくわからないと思いますので、今日は 3.3 で、リリースされた、オズマ戦を例にとって、実際にどのように企画開発が進められていったのかを分かりやすく説明させていただこうと思っています。
So it can be difficult to envision the work we do by simply looking at a flowchart. So I'd like to go into detail regarding the development process using, as an example, the Ozma battle from the Weeping City of Ma.
はい、ではオズマの企画をどうやって作っていったかを、まず説明させてください。
So how is the Ozma battle conceived? Let me talk a little bit about this.
企画のやり方は、スタッフによってさまざまなやり方があるんですが、今日は私のやり方を、説明します。
Each battle designer has his or her own way of creating new content, but I'm going to talk a little bit about how I personally go about it.
私はまず企画を作り始めるときに、ここに書いてある世界設定や、バトルコンセプトを考えることから始めます。
When I begin work on a new battle, I start with what I believe is the most fundamental of things, the battle lore and the battle concept.
世界設定は、世界設定班からこのボスの設定ってこういうものだよっていうふうに、提示される場合と、モンスター班の担当者がこのボスの設定はこういう感じでいきたいですっていうふうに、世界設定班に逆に提案する場合の、2通りのパターンがあります。
So when it comes to the lore behind a battle, there are two ways that this can happen. One way is that the lore team will provide us with a theme or a concept. A second way is that the monster team will come up with the idea ourselves and approach the lore team.
バトルコンセプトはその世界設定に沿ったものでかつシンプルで面白いものを考える必要があります。
So when coming up with this battle concept and the lore, it has to be unique and simple.
これはバトルの面白さの根幹になるものですので、ここでしっかりと時間をかけて面白いアイデアを考えます。
So this battle concept will ultimately be the core of the battle, directly affecting its overall quality. Therefore, I usually spend a lot of time working on this.
それでは企画書からコピーしてきたオズマの設定とバトルコンセプトをご覧ください。
So here's a look at the lore and the concept that I came up with for the Ozma battle.
この設定はオズマの得体の知れない部分をイメージしたもので、生物なのかよくわからないものを想像してこれを考えました。
On the lore side, I originally imagined Ozma as being an object of unknown origin. Is it a machine? Is it alive? I wanted it to be filled with mystery.
バトルコンセプトは、球体のオズマを形態変化させることで絵的に派手なバトルを作ろうという意図で考えたものです。
For the basic concept, I envision Ozma as being a spheroid which could alter its shape in dramatic fashion.
オズマの中に侵入するアイデアについてはこの世界設定をしっかりと、バトルの中で表現しようという意図と、バトルの中で大きく展開を変える場面を作りたいと思ったからです。
I came up with the idea to have players enter Ozma not only to reinforce the original lore concept, but also because it would provide the opportunity to dramatically change the battle.
次はボス企画を作る際のルールについて説明させてください。
Next, I want to talk a little bit about the rules that we have when we're coming up with a boss battle.
私はボス企画のクオリティを一定以上に保つために3つのルールを作ってそれに従って企画作業を進めています。
So I came up with these 3 rules myself in an attempt to ensure battle plan quality.
1つ目のルールは60秒ルールになります。
The first is what I call the 60-second rule.
先ほど紹介したような世界設定やバトルコンセプトを何も知らないスタッフに説明しその人が興味を持たなかった場合全てのアイデアを捨てて企画を最初からやり直すというふうに決めています。
Basically, this rule states that if you can't explain the aforementioned lore and battle concept in 60 seconds or less and make it interesting, then it's back to the drawing board.
この中川君のルールすごいよね。自分で作ってる自分なりのルールなんだよね。
そうです。
This rule that you have set up here, this is something that you set for yourself, right?
Yes.
例えば中川君がオズマのコンセプトを考えた企画を考えて60秒で僕に説明して僕が面白いねって言ってくれなかったらボツにするってことなんです。
そうです。
So say, for example, we're coming up with the idea of Ozma. So if you were not able to explain it to me in 60 seconds or less, were you ready to scrap the idea?
Yeah, ready to throw it away.
面白ければいいってもんじゃなくて、説明に60秒以上かかるっていう場合は大抵そのコンセプトが複雑なんで、面白いコンテンツを作れない場合が多いので、このルールに従って、企画を作っています。
I believe that, if the listener isn't intrigued after a minute's time, then it usually means that the core idea is either too boring or too complex. And it doesn't matter how much effort you put into it after that, fleshing it out, it will never be good.
はい、では次のスライドをお願いします。
All right, move on to the next slide, please.
2つ目のルールは、ユニークな要素を入れることです。
The second rule I have is that the idea must always feature something that's unique.
私はプレイヤーの皆さんに、常に驚きや感動を味わっていただきたいと思っていて、そのためには過去のボス戦にはない、ユニークな要素を、企画に盛り込むことが効果的だと考えています。
All right, I'm always thinking of bringing players new experiences that are both exciting and moving. I believe one effective way to do that is to make sure that the new battles contain features that haven't been used in previous boss battles.
オズマ戦では形態変化や、ブラックホールが、まさにそのユニークな要素でした。
For Ozma, those new features were the shape-shifting and the black hole.
私が過去に担当した芝戦では、氷を使って、3つの武器を作り出し、それを持ち替えながら戦う、ウェポンスワップというアイデアが特徴的でした。
So for things that I've worked on in the past, such as the Shiva battle, one of the unique concepts I brought for that battle was the swappable 3 ice weapons.
また、床を凍らせて、その上を移動したプレイヤーが滑るというアイデアが、ユニークでした。
Another one of the unique ideas with this is Shiva freezing the floor and having the players slip.
リバイア参戦では、バトルフィールドを傾けるという、ダイナミックな、遊びを導入しました。
For the Leviathan battle, it was I who came up with the concept of the tilting battlefield.
これさいやすごかったけどねこれちょっと裏話を一つしましょう。
So this is pretty impressive sort of effect that we were able to achieve here. But yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about what went behind the scenes.
当時中川君がリバイアさんのバトルの企画船の上で戦ってリバイアさんが出現して船に体を叩きつけると船が傾く バトルフィールドが傾くって書いてある。
So when Nakagawa first proposed the idea of the Leviathan battle, and he was talking about how we're fighting on the ship, and then Leviathan appears, and it strikes the ship, and it tilts the boat, that just struck me.
確かにさっきの60秒ルールで言ってもそれは面白いね。
And so going by that 60-second rule, oh yeah, I thought it was really interesting.
その後でもプログラマーとかデザイナーとどうやって傾けんのってこうみんなコンフューズするっていうね。
So, but I mean, the concept was great, but when we took it to the programmers and the designer, they were like, okay, so how do we achieve this? And they were a little bit confused about this.
で実際これまあ今日のこのセッション見た後リバイアさん行ってみてもらいたいんですけど、実は船は一切傾いてません、バトル中。
So I would love for people to actually take a look at the Leviathan battle and take notice, but if you look at it closely, you see that the ship itself is not actually moving.
傾いてるのは海と空です。
What is actually tilted is the sea and the sky that's behind it.
皆さん騙されてるだけです実は。
So you're actually just given an optical illusion, so to speak.
あれよく実装したよね。
最初は実現方法全く分からなかったんですが、いろんな人に相談していく上で、みんなで知恵を出し合って、その背景を傾けるというアイデアが出てきました。
Yeah, when we first took this to the programmers, no one knew what to do. And so I talked with a lot of people in a lot of the different departments, and this was the best idea that we came up with.
だからプレイヤーの皆さんこうリバイアさんがこうビターンって行って船がこうまあ実際には空が傾いてるんですけど、皆さんこう滑っていきますよね。
So when you look at the Leviathan battle and then it strikes the ship and you're tilted, well, the sky on the sea is tilted and you're pulled in a direction.
でも実際には僕らは知ってるんだけど床は動いてないので見えない紐でねこうみんな引っ張られてる。
So, I mean, to give out the secret, the floor hasn't moved, so it's actually like sort of an invisible thread that's kind of pulling you in the direction of where it's tilted.
あと最新だと女神の天秤も本当によく思いついたよね。
And oh, I wanted to also bring up in the latest patch, the goddess battle, that idea of the scales were really cool too.
実はこの女神の天秤のアイデアは、企画の最初に出てきたものではなくて、極板神の方にある魔法をコピーするっていうアイデアを、最初に考えました。
Actually, this scales mechanic wasn't the first one that I came up with for the Sophia battle. The first one I came up with was actually the magic copying that's done by the Ion Teleos.
ただ魔法をコピーするっていうアイデア自体は面白いんですけど、さっきの60秒ルールに、引っかかってしまって、説明するのに結構時間かかるんです。
But to have only the magic copying, when I tried to explain that in 60 seconds, it was actually pretty difficult to do.
なので、メインのコンセプトにはできなくて、なので代わりになるものをずっと考えていたんですが、1ヶ月ぐらいずっとアイデアが出ずに、悩みました。
So I knew that because the magic copying was too difficult to explain in 60 seconds, I needed to come up with another main unique concept. And so I spent about a month trying to come up with something.
で、ある日、ジムでランニングマシンの上で走ってる時に突然この天秤のアイデアを思いついて、すぐに走るのをやめて会社に戻ってすぐこれだと思って企画書を書きました。
And then one day I was at the gym on a running machine on a treadmill, and I had this idea of the scales, and I stopped right there, ran back to work, and started working on implementing it.
そのランニングマシンって動くやつだよね。
そうです。
Treadmill, so it's moving, right?
Yeah.
そっから落ちてひらめいたわけじゃないんだよね。
落ちたわ
Did
け
you
では
like
ないです。
slide off of it? Is that how you came up with the concept?
No, I didn't hit my head on anything and come up with the idea.
はい、では話を戻します。
All right, now we get back to the PowerPoint.
次のスライドお願いします。
Next slide, please.
3つ目のルールは、過去のコンテンツよりも面白いものを作ることです。
So my third and final rule is that the content must exceed what came before. It must be more interesting than what came before.
最新のパッチをリリースするたびに最高のコンテンツを作っているつもりではありますが、次のパッチではそれを超えるものを、その次のパッチではさらに面白いものを作ることがプレイヤーの皆さんにプレイを継続していただくために必要なことだと考えています。
So with each patch, the dev team is always striving to bring our users the best experience. But to ensure that you guys keep coming back, we have to strive to create better and better content than we delivered in the past.
まあバトルコンテンツはやっぱりまあ好き嫌いってあると思う。やっぱりまあシバが好き、リバヤさんが好き、でもタイタンは苦手だなとか。
I'm sure with every battle content, there's a preference, like likes or dislikes. Some people may like the Shiva battle, some people might like Leviathan, or they don't like the Titan battle, such and so on and so forth.
でもそれでも常に新しい体験を、もっと面白いものをっていうのが、まあ中川君がまあ大事にしてるルールだってことだよ。
はい。
So even with that in mind, you keep wanting to strive for a better content, more fun content. That's the kind of goal you set for yourself?
Exactly.
中川君のアイデアはいつも本当にユニークだけど、開発がみんなどうやってそれ実現するんだよってすごい大変なので。
You know, Nakagawa's ideas are so unique. They're wonderful, but it's always a challenge for our dev team to how do we implement this and make this take shape.
だからみんなに感謝だよね。
But yeah, I just have to be so thankful for the staff that supports us in the development.
本当にいつも苦労をかけています。
Yeah, really sorry to everybody that has to work with me for all the trouble I cause.
はい。企画のベースが固まったら、次は詳細を詰めていく作業を行います。
All right, so once the foundation of the battle is in place, then we move into planning the details.
オズマ戦の場合は、3つの形態にどういったアクションを使用させるかであったり、オズマの内部にどうやってどういう方法で移動させるかなどを詰めていきました。
So for the Ozma battle, that meant deciding what type of attacks and actions the boss would use, as well as how players were going to get inside Ozma.
またこの時点でオズマ戦は普通のボス戦よりも多くのリソースコストがかかることが予測できていたので、詳細を詰める作業と並行してデザイナーへの相談を進めていきました。
So at this point in time, it appeared as if the cost to create all the assets necessary for such a complex battle were going to be far more than any of the previous battles that we'd done. So we contacted the designers early to discuss what work would need to be done.
実際オズマって中川君が企画スタートさせてから完成してリリースするまでに何ヶ月かかった？
So when we actually did work on Ozma, how long did it take from planning of the concept all the way to completion and to implementation?
だいたい半年ぐらいですね。
6ヶ月。
About 6 months.
はい、では次のスライドお願いします。もう1枚お願いします。でデザイナーに、形態変化のアイデアについて、相談したら、ほんの数日で、このサンプルモーションを作ってくれました。
All right, so after letting the motion team know what we wanted to do with the shapeshifting, in a couple of days, this is what they came up with.
迅速に動いてくれて非常に助かりました。
I'm always surprised by their quick work. It's definitely a lifesaver for me.
あんまり MMORPG でやることじゃないよね。
This is so something that you don't do in an MMORPG.
これが第2形態です。
All right, this is the second shapeshift.
で皆さんがプレイされているものは、三角錐になっていると思うんですが、この時点では四角錐になっていました。
So in the release version, Ozma's pyramid form is 3 sides, but at this stage in planning, it was still 4 sides.
後に3方向へ同時にレーザー攻撃をする仕様が決まり、それであれば三角錐の方が馴染むだろうということで、モデルとモーションを調整してもらいました。
Once that we decided Ozma's attacks would be a laser that shot in 3 directions, we came to the conclusion that it would be more natural for a pyramid with 3 sides to do this, and so we tweaked both the model and the motion.
はい、次のスライドをお願いします。
Next slide, please.
次はバトルフィールドの作成過程についてです。
All right, now I'm going to talk a little bit about how we created the actual battlefield.
これは企画書からコピーしてきた、バトルフィールドの最低要件を表した図になります。
All right, so what you see is what we add in the actual original planning document.
真ん中のレインボーの円がオズマを示していて、青い小さな円が、各アライアンスの想定バトル地点を表しています。
So the rainbow in the middle is obviously Ozma, and the circles with A, B, and C are where each party in the alliance will fight.
グレーの部分がプレイヤーが移動できる範囲を示しています。
And then the gray area is the area in which the players can move.
これはバトルフィールドを横から見た図になります。
And this is the battlefield document from before, but with a side view.
これ企画書そのまんま持ってきたんだね。
そうです。
So this is literally out of the planning documents.
Yes, this is actually from the document we
落ちてってる人形が書かれてると企画のチェックの段階でこのコンテンツ落ちるんだなって。
So just by looking at this and seeing that sort of person falling and being explained that, oh, okay, I see that you're gonna be falling at one point.
はい、モンスター班の担当者は、こういった図を使って、レベル班の担当者にやりたいことを説明します。
Right. So it is with these documents in hand that the monster team discusses with the level designers how they want the field made.
で、レベル班の担当者が、それを受けて、マッハの世界設定などを加味した上で BG 班への発注を行います。
All right, and then once the level designer has all the details from the monster team, they flesh out the level concept using the lore for Mach and the information there, and then take all that to the background team.
で、さっきの図をもとに書かれたアートがこちらになります。
And so this is the first draft of art that we got from the art team based off of that rough design that I showed you before.
皆さんがプレイされているものとはかなり雰囲気が違っていました。
As you can see at this stage, it's very different from what actually made it into the game.
後にヨシピーにチェックしてもらった時に、これだとボイドアークにあまりにも似すぎているということで、作り直しになりました。
This is a sample of the art that was drawn up. And when we showed this to the producer, he said it was a little bit too close to what we had in Void Arc, and so we had to go back and tweak it.
まあ覚えてるけどあの時アートスタッフとレベルデザインチーム、エンバイロメントチームがモックアップができたからチェックしてくれって言って僕のところに来てで僕が実際その見に行った。
So I remember the time, yeah, when we were working on this and the art staff and then the level designer environment teams had brought up a mock-up that they wanted me to check.
そしたら暗い狭いピラミッドの頂上のモックアップだったんでやめようこれはって。
And so when I looked at it, it was such a claustrophobic, dark pyramid, and so I didn't want that design.
でその時言ったのが外の壁を全部なくそう。
So what I told the team was, let's just take away the walls on that outside.
その時のスタッフのっていう顔がね結構忘れられない。
And the look on their faces of like bewilderment was extremely memorable in my mind.
で結局それをアートにしたのが今映し出されてるやつですね。
And so after that concept was delivered, they put it up into an actual mock-up artwork, and there you have it.
And that's what you see here.
まあ最終的にさっき見たまがまがしいピラミッドがこんな感じになってこれが僕 OK 出したやつです。
And here we have much closer to the final one, and shows that really ominous sort of presence, and that's the design that I actually approved.
はい、では次はオズマ内部のマップについてです。
All right, here we have a map of Ozma's interior.
オズマに飲み込まれた街や、アトモスの、床ギミック、各アライアンスのスタート地点、オズマ影の配置や、ドゥームデーによる隕石の落下などが簡易的に示された図になります。
Here it shows where each party starts, the position of the Atomos on the floor, the triggers, where the enemies will appear, where meteor falls, and even location of the cities that Ozma has devoured that we talked about in the lore.
先ほどの図を元に書かれたラフアートがこちらになります。
And then when we presented that diagram to the art team, this is what they came back with.
アトモスとのバトル位置をかなり高くしたのは、ドゥームデイによる隕石の落下をインゲームのカメラでしっかりと捉えられるようにするための工夫になります。
So, one of the reasons that we had the Atomos battle take place so high up on the field and have meteor fall in a diagonal direction was so that everything could be caught by the in-game camera.
この工夫はレベル班の担当者が気を利かせてやってくれたものです。
This was achieved thanks to some excellent planning by the level design team.
これは企画の初期段階で書かれたオズマ内部のマップです。
And this is an early map of Ozma's interior.
先ほどのものと違ってかなり複雑になっていました。
So it's a lot more complex than what we actually ended up implementing in the game.
4人ずつのプレイヤーが6箇所にワープさせられる仕様で、それぞれの地点にはタンクが1人、ヒーラーが1人、DPS2 人が飛ばされる想定でした。
So the original plan was to have the alliance split up into 6 groups of 4 players each, with each starting point would have 1 tank, 2 DPS, and 1 healer.
ただこれだとブラックホール実行時点でヒーラーが1人でも戦闘不能になっている場合、極端に難易度が上がってしまうということで、このマップはボツになりました。
The problem with this was that at the time of the black hole, if the healer of any of the parties was KO'd, then their mini party would be at a severe disadvantage. And so for that reason, the idea was scrapped.
まあでもオズマは、パッチ 3.3 実装直後に世界中でオズマの難易度は適切なのかって言ってすごいプレイヤーの皆さんディスカッションしたので、こうしなくてよかったと思うよ。
よかったと思います。
With the Ozma battle, though, when patch 3.3 was first launched, I know there was a lot of discussion and debate about, is this really an appropriate difficulty level? So I think it's good that we ended up not utilizing this map.
もしオズマの霊式とかを作るんであれば、こういうマップでもいいかもしれません。
Now, if we were to make maybe an Ozma battle and a savage version of it, maybe we might go back to this plan.
本当に僕 E3 でも言われたけど、違うか、PAX でも言われたけど、本当にサベージ欲しいです？
But I mean, somebody told me this at PAX, I think. But really, do you guys really want a savage mode?
はい、ではここで、ちょっと脱線してしまうんですが、ちょっとした動画を見ていただこうと思っています。
All right, I think it's a good spot to maybe go off track a little bit and show you something that we created especially for this session.
この動画はオズマに今日オズマに関するプレゼンテーションをすることを、デザイナーの人たちに話したら、この動画の新しい形態変化のリソースを作ってくれて、しかも動画の撮影まで、協力してくれました。
So when I told the designers about the presentation that I would be giving today here at FanFest, they took the time to whip together a new shapeshift and actually make this video for me.
なのでもし本当に開発することになったら、この形態変化を使おうと思っています。
And so if we're really going to make a savage version, this has got to go in it.
ただひたすら全員死んでる動画じゃない。
But everybody was just getting wiped out in that footage.
いや、そんなにみんな欲しいっていうなら、どっかのタイミングで考えてもいいけど、マッハ全体を霊式にするわけじゃないよね。
それはないです。
I mean, I guess if the demand is so high from our users, we might have to consider it maybe somewhere down the line. But I mean, we're not enveloping the entire city of Mach, right?
No, just Ozma.
多分絶対クリアできなくなると思うんで。
If it was the whole city, no one would be able to clear it.
じゃあやるとしたらオズマサベージっていう 専用の24人バトルね。
はい。
So if we were to consider, it would be Ozma-specific 24-person battle.
That's right.
それでもいい。
Is that cool with you guys?
じゃあどっかでね余裕があったらやろうか。
Okay, well then if there's wiggle room, we might consider it down the line then.
あ、その代わり一個だけ
Oh, but one caveat though.
難しくても難しすぎるんだよこの野郎って文句は言わないでくださいね。
So if this were to come true, and the difficulty level is going to be pretty hard, so I don't want you guys to be complaining, oh, it's too hard.
いいよ。
はい、では話を戻します。
All right, let's get back to the presentation.
先ほどまでに紹介したような、モーションや、エフェクト、BG などが、最低限揃ったら、実装作業を始めます。
So once we received all the character, model, motion, background resources, then we can begin implementing the battle in the game.
ここでの作業を分解するとこの図のようになります。
The following diagram shows the steps for implementation.
ここでの作業のほとんどは担当プログラマーと担当プランナーのマンツーマンで進められかなりの長期間にわたります。
So this phase of development consists of the repetitions of 3 phases, with the planners and the programmers working one-on-one together.
実際このファイナルファンタジーXIVの開発チームはサーバーに直接つないでチェックをするときと自分の PC だけにサーバーを立ち上げて一人で14の特定ゾーンだけを起動してチェックするっていう実装の方法を使ってるんですけど。
So with the Final Fantasy XIV development team, when we're doing these processes, that sometimes we would do our adjustments when we're directly connected to the server and testing there, or sometimes it's just the developer setting up a server and environment on their own PC and sort of utilizing like a particular zone within.
だからこのチェックのフェーズってその自分のローカル PC でだけひたすらチェックをしてるんだよね。
はい、一人でひたすらやります。
And so for this checking process you had mentioned, this is where it's the latter, where you're just checking on your own local PC and sort of doing it by yourself.
Yes, I'm on my local PC going over it again and again and again.
だから一つずつ加速度爆弾飛んでくるかなっていうのをチェックしたりちゃんとダメージ与えたら変形が始まるかなとかっていうのをプログラマーとマンツーマンでひたすらチェックをし、調整をしてっていうのをやるフェーズなんだね。
So just to confirm, you're on your PC by yourself, and then so you'd be checking like the acceleration bomb, making sure that the damages are dealt correctly, shape-shifting are occurring properly, and you're kind of one-on-one with the programmers kind of checking on them as you go.
そういったチェックをしながら企画の段階では想像できていなかったことを見つけてしっかりと仕様を調整していきます。
Yeah, and it's through these, countless in-game checks that we're able to see things that we couldn't, envision during the planning process.
動作チェックと調整がしっかりとできたら次は QA チームに検証依頼をして報告されたバグの対応をしながら完成へと近づけていきます。
So after the gameplay has been checked and implemented on our side, and then we hand the reins over to our quality assurance team to do further testing, and then fixing the bugs they report and going back and adjusting. Rinse, repeat.
はい、次のスライドお願いします。ではここの工程で変更になった仕様などの紹介をさせてください。
All right, next I want to talk a little bit about how we adapt the model data. Please take a look at this screenshot.
このスクリーンショットには皆さんの見慣れないゴーレムが映っています。
So you can see a golem that's kind of floating where he shouldn't be floating.
この工程でこのゴーレムが空中を歩いてしまうというバグが発覚しました。
So basically, when the original plan that we had here, this monster was supposed to be on the ground, but when it was coming to the player, for some reason it would float.
でこのバグに対処するためにこのモンスターの移動 AI を修正しようと試みましたが非常に難しかったので このモンスターを、浮遊しているゴーレムに変更することで、対応をしました。
So when this bug was first discovered, the first idea was to fix it by changing the monster's movement AI. But then when we learned how difficult that would be, we decided to just change it to a flying monster.
たまたま浮遊しているモンスターがいてすごく助かったのを覚えています。
It was a good thing we already had a floating golem in the game, so.
発想の転換というかさ、プレイヤーが落ちるから結構特殊な床なんだよね、あの状態。
I mean, it's so interesting how we sort of turned our thinking to do this because, yeah, it is an environment where players fall off of the platform and it is a very narrow sort of path.
だから綺麗にどうしても移動の探索がうまく作れなくて回り込んできてくれないから発想の転換でじゃあ飛んでるモンスターにすれば浮いてきても大丈夫じゃんって。
そうですね。
And it's just that narrow path and it's supposed to have come around like very cleanly, but I mean it's great that we were able to sort of think outside of the box and just say, oh well, why don't we just have the monster floating to begin with?
いやでもね実際これも良かったと思ってあの縁を多分ゴーレムが走ってきてたらタンクが急いでヘイト取ろうとしてもっとたくさん落下してたと思うんだよね。
But actually, I think it turned out really well because if they were actually walking on the ground and the tanks came in and tried to capture all the aggro, it's like there would have been a lot more players falling off of that platform.
結果良かったと思います。
自分もそう思います。次のスライドお願いします。
All right, next slide, please.
ブラックホールで吸い込まれた際のワープ先は、皆さんご存知の通りなんですが、この仕様も、ここで、例外処理を1個追加しました。
Another thing that we changed during the QA testing phase was the warp destination following parties being sucked into the black hole.
ヒーラーが2人戦闘不能になっている場合、別のアライアンスのヒーラーを、そのアライアンスのスタート地点にワープさせる、例外仕様です。
This special rule that we came up with was that it calls for different player placement in the event that one party's healers were KO'd at the time of the warp.
これは良かれと思って入れた仕様だったんですが、公開後にどうもバグだと勘違いされてしまったようで、GM 報告で何件か上がってきてしまいました。
I mean, this was done to help out parties that maybe had a healer KO'd at the time of the warp, and we did this because we wanted to make the battle easier for players. But because it was so unique to this battle, when we implemented the game, first few days we just kept getting GM calls saying that, oh yeah, my player has been warped to the wrong spot, what's going on?
まあこういう良かれと思ってやったらねバグに見えるってまあたまにあるよね。
Those things we feel that we're doing the players a favor sometimes comes around as like a bug report. So.
はい、次のスライドお願いします。
And next slide.
で、実装と調整が終わったら次はいよいよテストプレイに入ります。
So once all the features have been implemented and our preliminary QA test is complete, then we do what is called our 24-man test.
24人でのテストプレイは約3週間にわたって実施され、その間テストプレイと調整を繰り返しながらクオリティを上げていきます。
So our 24-man tests usually are conducted over a period of 3 weeks, with tweaks occurring in real time throughout the test period to increase battle quality.
24人でのテストプレイは開発チーム内の各セクションから最低1人ずつは参加してもらうようにしています。
So for our 24-man test, we try to get at least one person from every major section on the team.
これはそれぞれのセクションでしかわからないような専門的なフィードバックをもらうことができるからです。
So by getting people from a variety of different sections to test the content, we can gather opinions from multiple different sources, and that gives us insight on things that might not have been readily obvious to us.
で、ここでは、ボスのアクションのダメージ値であったり、敵の HP の値であったりとか、バトルバランスに関わるものを重点的に調整していきます。
So one of the biggest changes or some of the biggest changes that happen during this phase of development usually deal with battle balance, like action damage, action timing, enemy HP, and the like.
で実際これその開発チームでできるだけ24人集めようとしてテストをしてます我々。
So with this phase of the testing, we make sure that we gather the 24 people within the development team.
でもその時やっぱりそのミッドコアアライアンスレイドってできるだけみんなにクリアしてほしいレイドなのでチェックする時は各セクションから最も DPS の高い人からこうあんまりカジュアルにしか14遊んでない人までちゃんとこうバランス取ってパーティーを作って、ここでチェックを何度も繰り返すっていうことをやってます。
But that being said, we definitely want this to be a content that is beatable for not only hardcore players, but like mid to casual players as well. So when we are gathering our 24-person group, we take people that, of course, have the high DPS, but at the same time, people who are a little bit more on the casual side as well, and try to have a good balance amongst our testers. And then we repeatedly do our checking.
あとはみんなこうチャットを使ってテストの指示をするので次のバトルもう一回やるときはパーティーの中の DPS2 人はオートアタックしかしないでくださいみたいな指示をしてチェックをしたりもしますね。
And of course, we highly utilize the chat function within the game to make sure that we're communicating with each other through these test phases. So, for example, if we were going to go into a second round of the battles, maybe somebody would instruct the DPS, two DPSs to just stick to auto attack, and so on and so forth.
でやっぱりいろんな公開されるといろんなタイプのプレイヤーさんがマッチングされて24人で遊んでいくレイドなので戦術が分かってくると徐々にちゃんとクリアできていくっていうバランスにするためにレイドは24人のアライアンスレイドはいつもそうやってチェックをしてます。
And of course, once the game is, or the content is released, I'm sure there's a lot of different types of players that do get matched up through this for our raid content. And so we wanted to definitely make sure we take into consideration these different factors and make sure that it is a raid that we can sort of all enjoy at different player levels. And then, so that's how we test our different raid content.
そうする中でもバトルチームのフィードバックがここから先重要なんだよね。
And amongst all the feedback that we do receive, we do also take great care in the feedback that we receive from the battle team, especially.
でバトルチームとモンスターチームのスタッフはこの24人テストに全員参加することになっていて、その日のテストが終わったらみんなで集まってその日感じたことを話しながら調整内容を決めていきます。
Definitely, all members of the battle and monster teams take part in this test, and when the day's battery of tests is through, we all get together for a meeting to discuss the things we saw and how best to go about making the adjustments.
はい、次のスライドお願いします。
Next slide, please.
実際の更新履歴をコピーしてきましたので、ご覧ください。
Here is an actual list of some of the changes and adjustments that were made to the Ozma battle before implementation.
数が多すぎるので全ては載せられませんでした。
There were far too many to list here.
調整内容にはしっかりとした意図がありますので、いくつかピックアップして説明させてください。
And while there are a lot of tweaks, I'd like you to know that each of these tweaks were made for a specific reason. Let me take a few moments to touch upon some specific tweaks that were made.
加速度爆弾の効果範囲についてですが、当初は円範囲になっていて、他人を巻き込むようになっていました。
So, originally, the acceleration bomb was supposed to be an AoE attack that affected multiple party members.
これは難易度が高すぎたので、すぐに単体に変更しました。
Yeah, during the test play, we found that this was a little bit too difficult for most of the players, so we switched it to a single target.
でブラックホールについてですが、これはバトル中に合計2回実行するようになっていました。
As for the black hole, we were actually going to have two separate black hole phases.
これはやってみて単純に冗長に感じたので1回削りました。
But after test playing, we realized that this was just a little bit too much, so we decided to reduce it to the one.
でキューブに変形した後のオートアタックは、ヘイトトップを狙うようになっていましたが、 これを各アライアンスのタンクを狙って、レーザーを3本同時に実行する仕様に変更しました。
So, once Ozma had switched to a cube, he was designed to auto-attack the player with the most enmity, but we changed it to an attack that would attack all 3 tanks.
これは各アライアンスの難易度を平均化するためです。
And this was done to normalize the difficulty across all 3 parties.
で加速度爆弾の効果範囲を単体にしてから、しばらくテストプレイを続けましたが、それでも加速度爆弾が全滅の原因になることが続きました。
So, even after we had changed the acceleration bomb to a single target, our test plays were still showing that a lot of parties were wiping because key players were succumbing to the bomb.
何人かのスタッフにヒアリングをしたところ、そもそも加速度爆弾が付与されたことに気づかないということが分かったので、それを分かりやすくするためのエフェクトを追加しました。
So when we asked our test staff why they thought this was happening, a lot of times they said that they didn't even know that they'd been tagged with the acceleration bomb. And so because of this, we decided that we were going to add a graphical visual effect that you see in the game now.
この頃の開発チーム内チェックは本当に悲鳴が上がってて、とにかくみんな加速度爆弾で死ぬ。
When we were actually doing this testing, yeah, there were so many testers that got wiped because of that
まあ
acceleration
テスターっていうか開発チームのスタッフね。
The development staff, when they were playing that content, so many of them were getting hit by that acceleration bomb.
で特に加速度爆弾が円範囲だった頃は、例えばあいみさんに加速度爆弾がついてんだけど、あいみさんが気づいてなくてそれに。で僕がいや来るな来るなって言って落ちたりとか。
And so when we originally had this where it's an AoE, and so say for example Aimi had the acceleration bomb tagged, and Yoshida would be like, no, don't come near me because it's AoE, and then they would fall off the platform.
いや頃は完全にエクストリームだった。
Yeah, that was totally savage.
じゃあエクストリームを作るときは円範囲に戻しましょう。
But if we're going to make it savage, we're definitely going to change it to AoE.
はい、今日のプレゼンテーションは以上になります。
All right, and that brings us to the conclusion of today's presentation.
Okay, では最後に英語で、挨拶をして終わりたいと思います。
Okay, I'm going to do my conclusion in English, so.
Today, using Ozma as an example, I've showed you how battle content is put into the game. Because I only had an hour, there were things that I was not able to cover up. But I hope I was able to show you a lot of interesting things. Please take a walk through the Weeping City after today's session. I'm sure you will enjoy the contents even more. And if today's presentation made you interested in working for gaming industry, I have a few words for you. Please send us your resume if you are ambitious and passionate. We don't care whether you have experience in gaming industry or not. Thank you for your time today. Thank you.
One more round of applause for our panelists today. I know Nakagawa is really nervous, but you did a great job. Everybody's super excited. We're going to get flooded with resumes now.
まあ最後に一言、相当これでホッとしたと思うんで、この後多分いろんなところに歩き回ってると思うので、今聞いた通り彼ある程度英語わかりますんで、ぜひミスターオズマと声をかけてあげてください。
So just one last thing before we conclude. I'm sure he's taken off a load now that he was able to provide his presentation, and so he will probably be walking around the show floor. So if you see him, just call out to him, Mr. Ozma, and just give him a warm welcome.
Thank you all one more time. Everybody will be back here in 1 hour for our Please Look Forward to It QA panel. I will be grabbing the questions now, and we'll also be doing live questions from the audience. So if you have good ones, hold on to them. Take care, everybody. We'll see you back in 1 hour.